Good day and welcome back to my channel. So clearly we have made a little bit of progress on the F-14. I do have a few things to go over. There are some gotchas and gitches and other sort of commentary to make about this kit. So I will just go ahead and get cracked in here. So we'll start with the cockpit. So as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, one of the victory conditions for this kit was to build it sort of out of the box. Basically take what came in the kit and sort of work with that. In essence, don't buy aftermarket. Now, to be fair, the one thing I did choose to do was pick up the transfers for the markings that I did want, because the markings do not come in the ones that I want, which are the Jolly Rogers. So I did get those, but that's okay because I'm not gonna hand paint those things. Other than that, though, I wanted to see if I could take and do the detail work that was, like basically make the thing work or look nice using what's in the box and maybe a little bit of, stuff that's laying around. So with the cockpit, that's what I've done, and I am content. So I talked about this one in my last video, and I talked about the sink marks, or not sink marks, I'm sorry, but the ejector pin marks, and having to work with those and a few other things. But I've managed to make this work. Now, I did do some extra effort or some extra pieces. You can just barely see them in there, and you can see these things here. I did do those extra bits, but the stuff that you see for the most part are from the water slide transfers. So most of those controls are all the water slide transfers that come with the kit itself. The main consoles there, again, water slide transfers. I did dull them down with honestly, I used Null oil because it not only dulled them down, but it sort of gave them a depth, which kind of worked. The radar screens I did hit with Ard Coat to give them that reflective look. With this, my plan is for this one to be on display without pilots and sort of just sitting there, so I don't have to have the blips and blops, and it's not going to be active, so I don't need all those detail pieces. All those detail little marks and things in the radar, so just a straight screen works. I did use the ejector seats that came with the kit with a couple modifications. So I did custom make the harnesses, bent some wire to make the buckles, and used masking tape to do the straps, and painted them and washed them, and I'm actually fairly content with the way they came out. I sort of added a couple little extra pieces on the ejection seats themselves, but then dry brushed and washed them, and there we go. So in essence, that's what the cockpit came out to be. I did mention this, right? So you do this piece here. You like step 4, this step 3, jump to step 4, do step 5, and then skip over to step 21. And I did that, and I put this whole thing together because I wanted to actually have the whole cockpit done. I wanted to see if it would look all right. Now, I don't know why they have you doing all of these steps at the end. It doesn't make sense, but it is what it is. I didn't really impact the overall flow of putting the kit together by doing what I did. I just went ahead, got the nose together, and this piece now gets treated as a single assembly as it is. The last thing that goes on is the canopy, so it doesn't really matter that I've done this. Now, yes, I did glue the nose shut. I'm not doing the radar, not because I don't want to do the radar, but because I like the look of the nose closed. I do still have some sanding to do on this seam, but I've gotten these seams done and sanded down and ready to prime to find any other extra work. I'm going to talk about fit in a minute, but with these, I found that the nose cone, I had to squeeze this part here and squeeze this part here to get the two halves of the fuselage to mate with the nose cone correctly, or at least close to correctly. Still had to do a lot of shaving and sanding to get that smooth, but it's workable. I expected better from Tamiya, but it is what it is. So that's our cockpit. That's what I've got. I'm going to put a couple of pictures up here now of the different things I did, because like I said, I did put some detail pieces up in underneath. So here's a couple of pictures of what I've done. And that's those. Right, so those are the things that I did when I was putting the cockpit together. Big deal, yay. Next thing, right? So after the cockpit was done, I went ahead and started back at the beginning. And I started with the engines and the putting in of those. So those went together okay, and the detail in there is really actually kind of nice. The downside is these seams. This I don't know what it's called, nozzle, I guess. But that tunnel where the exhaust comes out has that big honking seam right there, and there isn't squat you can do with it, because you can see it's got this detail here, and that seam just runs through all that detail, and that's on the inside. I have no idea how to handle that, how to sand that down or fill it. I will be using the end caps, or I honestly don't know what those pieces are called, but the nozzles, I guess, where they're folded down, so that should hide those. But in the process, it also hid all of that. It's going to hide all that cool little detail. I did go through the effort of shading and everything down in there, and you can kind of see it's kind of hard because of lighting, but you get the idea. I did do all the shading and things that we needed to do for that, so it looked kind of cool before I put it in, but right, and I'm kind of unhappy about it. I'm unhappy about that seam, right, and that's very disappointing, and we're going to get there in a second. When you do these pieces, though, these have you glue those to the spot on the bottom part of the fuselage. Glue those in and make sure they're cured. So get those in place and leave them sit until they're tight. Because what ends up happening is this piece has nothing that contacts with those tubes except right here at the edge. And if those are loose, putting this on is going to knock them out. So you need these two pieces to be tight and cured in place when you put this on. Otherwise, you're going to just buy grief. All right, so let's talk now about the things that irritate me, or the thing that is irritating me more than anything else, and that's fit. See that seam right there? That is after shaving and sanding and shaving and sanding and filling. That seam was miserable, absolutely miserable. And you can see that sink mark right there too. It's just terrible. I glued it, and I had to hold it, and I taped it, and I clamped it, and tried everything. But that seam, I could do nothing to make that made up nicely, and I had to work on sanding that quite a bit to get that to fit. And I'm finding that to happen a lot in this kit. So you do this, one of the steps that you have to do, is make these things too, but these kind of fit, but the way they are, I mean, the engineering of this kit is just, I don't get it. So you're putting this cockpit together. The next thing they have you do is build these. These are the wheel wells for the two rear wheels. And there's this piece, this piece, this piece, and this piece, and they kind of go all together, but they're not like square, so it's not like you can set them off, on your desk and have them made up. You actually have to do them here, but you can see like this one's hanging out into space. This one here kind of is angled. This one's angled. So with all of those angles and everything, it's actually really a pain. Super fiddly to get these things to go together. What I ended up doing was gluing this one to this one with Tamiya super thin, which kind of held it in place. Got those into place in this corner, glued those in, and then kind of built away from that. But even so, this was really sort of fiddly, and you have to do it twice. It's really the engineering, I don't know. I suppose it's what had to be done, but it could be better. I have no idea what this hole is for, and I don't understand why it's there. And I looked at the instructions. I don't see anywhere or place that's going to get filled, or I don't see anything that goes into it. So at some other later video, after I've done all the landing gear, maybe I'll have found it and I'll say, hey, remember when I said it's actually this? But I'm not so sure. So fit was fiddly and just not good, and I expected a whole lot better from Tamiya. But with that said, this much I was able to do, and again, it required more effort than I anticipated. Which gets us to the next piece, and this one I'm going to really gripe about. There's a huge gotcha here, guys. So, wings, right? Putting the wings together, the orientation on this is very difficult to see, to recognize. These tabs here, they come out, and then they have two little lips here and on the backside. And if you'll note, the tab that they go onto is on the top. Actually, these wings are upside down. Actually, no, these are right side up. So the bottom part of the wing has the tab that these slide onto, and they slot on. Then you screw them in place. You can't mix that up, but this orientation, you just need to make sure are tight. It's difficult to see, but it is what it is. The wings went together well. This was a bit of a pain. Then we get to this part. You get this metal piece that has these two holes that go onto these two prongs that are coming up from the top part of the fuselage, actually coming down from the top part of the fuselage. And you you screw in these two cogs, and they're, again, to help the wings as the wings open, to make them move the same. You get to the piece that I had, this metal part that I had, did not fit at all. Well, what it ended up doing was when I put that through the hole, it ended up making this whole piece sort of flex in. And it put a lot of strain on both the center part of that fuselage and on those two cylinders. The next thing you do then is you put the wings on, you put a bushing in there, you put a washer in, and then you screw. This is plastic. This piece right here you're screwing into is plastic, and you're using a metal screw. And the theory is you're going to screw down and screw the wing tight, and that'll hold that in place. And then, this whole assembly keeps all the cogs and everything in place so that when the wings will work. No, not even close to no. This piece, the way it's done, these little ridges on the metal parts, when the wings are out, you put the wings on. First of all, I had to squeeze down hard to get this piece to actually go down far enough so I could screw that screw in. So that told me something's really issue here, and that's metal pulling in tension against grooves in plastic. What are the odds of that lasting? You kind of get the idea. And then you got to go over to the other side and do the other thing, which just adds more tension here. And when I did that, I did it with the wings open. And then, this shows you, the wings fold back, right? The wings got back to about 15 degrees shy of closed. So they got to back, they're supposed to come to here. They got to about here and they stopped. They were hitting something. And I couldn't for the life of me figure out what it was. And twice as I was trying to work with it, this screw just pulled right out. So, I'm ended up, I screw it back in. You can guess where that's going. Turns out the screw heads here, the tops of these screws are hitting these ridges. By doing that, as this rolls forward, it can't go any further in without popping up and forcing this up, which is what strips that screw. And as it is, the whole thing, that tension was doing this to the top. It was literally pulling on the column there that thing screws into, and was putting these stress marks and making a hole. It was risking ripping that in. I fiddled with it, and eventually I couldn't get that back on. I said, the heck with it, right? I actually walked away. I walked away from this kit for about 24 hours. I just put it down. I said, I cannot figure this out. And I am an engineer, right? I went to school for engineering. I can read drawings. I understand the orientation. I understand how things go. I quadruple check this. And by the way, these are upside down. This is upside down. This is the top part of the fuselage, and that is the top part of the wing. So if you see here, see how this is the orientation? See those little tabs right there? That's the thing. So this picture is wrong. And I actually went and I looked up the drawing to see. So there we go. Anyway, I walked away from it, came back, and I pulled out my Dremel, and I cut this metal piece off. I was originally just going to say, you know what, the heck with it. I'm just going to let these things flop loose, and I don't care that they're in sync or not. And then it's like, well, these were actually really, really loose, and because of these washers, it was kind of difficult to give them some resistance. So I ended up cutting this off, screwing these back on, so now this works. This works just fine. Another getcha here is this tip right here. If you let the wings fold all the way to this spot, this is going to pop out, right? So then it's going to catch. So what I ended up doing is putting that little stop block right there. So the wings come just a touch shy of that spot and stop. So these are going to stop inside of the opening there. That again is something that needed, again, it was a little bit of extra work you have to do. You have to see that that's going to happen, and you have to deal with it. Really? So that was my solution. Maybe my part was bent. Maybe my part wasn't formed correctly. Maybe. Whatever it was, that engineering for all of this just did not work. Now, I know because of the tension that was put in, I test fit that to this. And this fits perfectly. This didn't need to twist. This didn't need to bend in. So it didn't need any, there's nothing in that part that was necessary. Now, I will call with a caveat here. There's a hole in this right here. And that hole is specifically for a screw. So you screw up from the bottom to screw the bottom to the top. And there are 3 of them. You put one to go to each one of those, and then you have to put this piece in. There's a nut that you put in here, and then you glue down, and then so there's 3 screw holes that you have to put in here, here, and here. And that's the other thing I'm grumpy about. Why, in the name of whatever, do I have screws showing in the bottom of a 1/32 scale model kit? This is not a toy, right? If I was going to buy a toy that I was going to play with, a G.I. Joe thing, I'd expect to see screws in the bottom because that's how the thing's put together. This is a model kit. the theory is the model kit looks like the subject. There are not giant screws in the bottom of the fuselage of a Gorham F-14. What were they thinking? It's not like they're necessary. I can easily, I mean, this piece and that piece, they'll go together. I put some glue in it, I'm good. These seams, they all made up. They made up about like, they mate about the way those do, but they mate. So you glue them together, it goes together, no problem. Why do I have these giant screws? Sorry. Why do I have these giant screws in the bottom of this F-14? I am now going to have to patch those holes because we have to patch the holes. And I looked through the instructions. I don't see any part that goes in and covers them. That's ridiculous. So as of now, as of this moment, I'm done with Tamiya. I'm done. This is the last Tamiya kit I will ever buy. I will never, ever, ever, ever recommend Tamiya to anybody. That's ridiculous. And this is, I mean, if this was a 30 or 40 shekel kit, right? Okay, maybe. Right? This if it was a cheap kit, fine. But I think this thing's retailing for like, 12, 13 shekels. For American dollars, we're talking $120, $130. Really? I'm buying Zvezda from now on. But I'm going to finish this kit. All right. Again, victory condition. Take what's in this box. Make a good result. So I'm going for it. And I have, to quote Vincent Kapoor, I am excited about the opportunities that this presents. But really, so those are some gotchas, guys. This I strongly recommend. Test fit all that, and if this is tight and difficult, just stop, because this works. If you do it like this, I just cut it there because it was easy, but this works just fine. You don't need those other pieces, and you certainly don't need those screws over here, because these will glue just fine right there. With that said, I'm now moving on to the next layer, and I think the next step is actually put these two pieces together. But I'm going to sort of double check to kind of look ahead and see what I'm missing in those, and we'll go from there. So with that said, I have now waffled and whined on for a bit longer than I anticipated, but thank you very much for listening. I hope this is helpful. If you have this kit or are looking at getting this kit, please see what I'm working with here. I will continue to show what I'm doing and what I'm wrestling with, so that if you decide you want to pick up this kit, you will see exactly what I dealt with and make a informed decision. But until then, I will continue to practice and play and go from there. And until next time, happy modeling, everyone.